Hi there, my name's Adam Fielding, and today we're going to be looking at Reason 13's new synth, Polytone. Polytone is a dual oscillator polyphonic synth that was introduced with the release of Reason 13. However, there's a little more to it than you might initially expect. By utilizing the dual layer functionality of the synth, you can achieve a deeper and wider variety of sounds than you might expect from a dual oscillator synth. Today, I'm going to be looking at this synth and how you can use the various layering options to create, well, multi-layered sounds. So, with all of that said, let's go! So here it is, the synth of the hour. This is Polytone, the dual-layer synthesizer. Now, as you can see from looking at it, it actually shares quite a lot in common with its little cousin, Monotone. It sounds great, it's straightforward to use, quick to program, and clearly laid out. So you can quickly see the oscillator controls, the filter controls, everything's there ready to use. Now, in lieu of making Polytone a more complex synth with the inclusion of a modulation matrix, Reason Studios have actually opted to add an additional layer to Polytone that can be utilized in a couple of interesting ways, transforming this unassuming, easily programmable synth into a multi-layered synth capable of surprising depth or shifting sounds. Now, firstly, of course, you can use a single layer to achieve great results. I'm a big fan of monotone simplicity and sound, and you can very much use Polytone as a straight-up polyphonic version of monotone if you so wish. There's some extra functionality in there, such as filter type controls, but you can use it as a polyphonic version of monotone if you really want to. In my demo song for Reason 13, called You Are Always Here, I used several single-layer Polytone synths. Here's an example of Polytone being used to really fill out the mix with some big sawtooth-heavy chords. Now, you might not think that sounds particularly fancy, but here's how that sounds in the context of the track. I'm just going to turn this device on, and let's play that section again. Neat. Now, even as a single-layered synth, Polytone can be used to create these really lovely monophonic warm bass sounds, such as this. However, thanks to the filter type encoder here, you can drastically alter the character and timbre of these sounds as well. So let's dial in a bit of a bandpass filter here using the filter type encoder. Let's dial back the attack on the filter envelope and change the voice mode to poly mode. So now we should be able to play it as a key type patch. So let's give it a go. So with just a few minor tweaks, we basically just completely transformed the sound of this bass patch into a polyphonic key patch. And therein lies one of Polytone's greatest strengths, I think, the ability to dial in new sounds with just a few tweaks, and it'll probably sound great. So let's take that single layer and double things up. Here's a patch making use of Polytone's two layers set to mix mode, resulting in both layers being played simultaneously. So in this instance, layer A is being used to create a soft, plucky sound, while layer B is used as the main body of the patch. So let's hear those individually. This is layer A, and this is layer B. So as a result, you end up with a sound that has this nice kind of initial soft pluck sound with a nice rounded body to fill out the sound. So let's put that sort of about halfway up. Now, additionally, you can also use the global LFO to control the fader position between layer A and layer B. So let's give this a go, just by clicking on the global LFO button here, and then let's adjust the rate so it's a little bit slower. So let's just play it. So as a result of this change, you can hear that the sound shifts from one layer to the other. You can also accentuate the differences between the two layers by, for example, changing the oscillator pitches. So let's go to layer B and let's set oscillator A's pitch to -7. And let's set oscillator A to +7 semitones. And let's turn that ARP off and play it as a straight up key type patch. And once again, we've turned one patch into something completely different by simply adjusting a couple of controls. Now, of course, once you start layering up polytones, things can get really interesting. So here's an example of a multi-layered synth with kind of a 90s rompler sort of feel created using two multi-layered polytones. Lovely. Let's mix things up a little bit more. The final mode we're going to look at today is called morph. So whereas the mix mode mixes the audio of the two layers in Polytone, morph, well, it morphs between the parameters of the two layers. So you know how I mentioned earlier that Polytone doesn't include a modulation matrix? Well, the morph mode is kind of Polytone's answer to that. I suppose the best way to demonstrate this is to look at a patch that morphs between two layers with only a single change. So going back to my Reason 13 demo track here, there's a particular Polytone patch I've used as a lead, and it sounds like this. So in this patch, the LFO is used to control the shape of oscillator 1, resulting in that kind of warbling sound. The only difference between the two layers is that in layer A, the LFO is running at a slightly slower rate compared to layer B. So as a result, you get this steadily speeding up and slowing down kind of timbral shift as the patch plays. So let's play it again and just listen to how that sounds as the layer fader shifts from layer A to layer B and vice versa. So it's quite a simple patch, and with just that one little change, it introduces a nice bit of variation. Now, of course, there's nothing stopping us from introducing additional changes. So on layer B, let's maybe reduce the filter resonance and adjust the filter type. So let's add some FM while we're at it. So let's turn up the FM amount and let's give that a go. So it's a much more drastic change now, and just by using the morph mode, you can easily sweep between those two layers, creating this nice, interesting timbral shift. Instead of using a modulation matrix to introduce these patch level variations, you can simply turn a few encoders and morph between the layers to introduce variety, which is exactly what we've done here. Another way to use the morph functionality is to control the layer fader via the velocity of the note played, using this button here. Now, in this patch, I'm doing just that. The higher the velocity, the more the fader skews towards layer B. Here, layer B introduces additional frequency modulation and oscillator variety, just resulting in a slightly harsher, more metallic sound. So let's hear how that sounds. Now, let's really dial up the FM amount in layer B so you can really hear what's going on. So as you can hear here, The morph mode is a great way to introduce additional variety to sounds, and by using the FM and filter controls in particular, you can really change things up. Now, let's hear how that sounds with an extra ARP turned on. Spooky. Well, there we have it. I hope you've enjoyed this brief overview of Polytone and its dual layer functionality. Personally, as a huge fan of Reason's old monotone synth, I was thrilled to hear about the introduction of Polytone and its dual layer functionality in Reason 13. So it's been wonderful to use this synth in a practical setting. And I absolutely love the use of the morph mode to introduce timbral variation and additional modulation. So I hope you enjoy using this synth as much as I've enjoyed using it. Happy noise making! Cheers!